Clowns. Some people like them, most people hate them. Clowns have been a part of society since. Yo, what the hell, bro? Okay, well, my point is they've been around a long time. Despite their history, though, a lot of people have coulrophobia or have a disliking towards clowns. I can say that clowns do, in fact, make me uncomfortable, but I don't necessarily have a fear towards them. This story, however, was able to get under my skin in a way that no other cryptid or urban legend has in a long while. It's a story that, when I first read it, found it to be one of the strangest situations I've ever heard of. And ever since hearing about it for the first time, I've wanted to make a video simply discussing the possibilities of what this entity could have been. And so, without further ado, what was the Sandown Clown? In May of 1973, two children were playing by Lake Common. The boy was never given an official name, while the girl went by the anonymous name Faye. Faye was vacationing to Sandown with her family and had met the young boy while playing. At around 4 in the afternoon, while they were sitting down and talking, the two of them suddenly heard a distant siren that sounded similar to an ambulance, but much lower. The two children were initially nervous, but out of curiosity, they decided to follow the weird siren. And after crossing the field and going through a hedge, they found themselves adjacent to the little used Sandown Airport. They continued to follow the noise until suddenly it just stopped. The two children were approaching a small footbridge over a narrow brook or creek when suddenly Faye noticed a blue glove gripping the footbridge. The two children paused and quickly slipped behind a bush when they saw the three-fingered glove begin to move. From there, they witnessed a 6 to 7 foot tall figure emerge from under the small footbridge before stepping out of the water. Faye noted that his movements were peculiar due to how it seemed he didn't quite know how to maneuver his body. The figure then dropped a book-like object he was carrying into the water and quickly fumbled for it. After a moment of the entity struggling, they watched it wander towards a metallic hut which, as quoted, was similar to those used on building sites except that it had no windows, end quote. The children, obviously confused and nervous about the situation, left their hiding place and began leaving the area. They only reached about 50 feet away or so before they looked back, seeing the entity standing at the footbridge. The entity was carrying a black microphone that was connected to his chest by a white cord. Upon seeing the entity standing at the footbridge, the sound of the siren started again, the loudness of it scaring the boy, causing him to begin fleeing. Faye followed close behind him when, suddenly, the noise ended and the entity began speaking.
Hello, are you still there?
The children, sensing a strange hint of kindness in the entity's tone, stopped running away and started approaching it, feeling a sense of calmness suddenly. And upon approaching the entity, Faye provides the description of it that I will read out to you, as reported in the Befora Journal, Volume 6, Number 5, from January/February of 1978. He was nearly 7 feet tall and had no neck, for his head appeared to be wedged straight onto his shoulders. He wore a yellow pointed hat which interlocked with the red color of a green tunic. A round black knob was affixed to the top of his hat and wooden antennae were attached to either side. The face had triangular markings for eyes, a brown square for a nose, and motionless yellow lips. Other round markings were on his paper-white cheeks, and a fringe of red hair fell onto his forehead. Wooden slats protruded from his sleeves and from below his white trousers, and his first communication was in writing. It was then that the strange creature pulled out a notebook and wrote on it. When the entity turned the notebook around, Faye read each word aloud that was pointed out to her. The reason for this was due to the fact that the words were placed in random parts of the paper and didn't produce a cohesive sentence. However, when she read the words aloud, they formed the sentence, "Hello, and I am all colors Sam." The children stepped a little closer before realizing that the creature could speak without the microphone, but his lips oddly did not move, like he was wearing a mask of sorts. The entity asked questions about the children before the children asked about Sam's tattered up clothing. Sam explained that that was his only set of clothing and he had nothing else to wear. Acknowledging his strange features, the children asked if he was a man, to which, after chuckling him to himself, Sam simply stated,
No.
"Are you a ghost?" the children asked.
Well, not really. But I am in an odd sort of way.
"What do you mean?"
You know.
After that, he provided no further explanation as to what he was, but continued by saying he had no real name and that there were others like him as well. After drawing a rough sketch of the other people like him, he confided that he was scared of people and was afraid they'd hurt him. He explained that if he was ever attacked, though, he would not fight back. After speaking for another moment, Sam invited the two children back to his hut. The children obliged and followed Sam through a small flap that led inside the hut. Once inside, the children made note that the hut had two levels, with the bottom one having enough headspace for Sam to stand upright completely. As quoted, the lower had plenty of headroom and was wallpapered in blue, green, and covered with a pattern of dials. It also had an electric heater and simple wooden furniture. The upper level was less spacious and the floor was metallic. As they were sitting in the hut, Sam explained that he lived off of berries that he gathered in the afternoon, but never specified where, despite hinting that he might have a camp on the mainland. He also explained that he drank from the river water after cleaning it. Before eating the berry he showed to the children, though, he did some strange conjuring trick, as Sam called it, and I'm gonna need you all to follow me closely because this is so random and weird that it confused me because I'm a little stupid sometimes, and after understanding what actually happened, it still confuses me. So, first, Sam placed the berry into his ear. Then he jerked his head, causing the berry to go inside of it, the berry reappearing at one of his eyes. Repeating the jerking motion, the berry fell down into his mouth. Okay. Now, some people suspect that Sam did this to examine the berry to make sure it wasn't poisonous, but I don't know if I fully agree with that sentiment due to just how odd the whole scenario was. I mean, this dude literally shoved a blueberry in his ear and it appeared behind his eye and then it rolled back and just fell into his mouth. I don't know, how do you explain that to someone? Of course he's wearing a mask, but even then, why would you do that? What do you get out of shoving a blueberry in your ear? But for my silly viewers out there, please don't go outside, if you even do go outside, and start shoving berries into your ears. I can already imagine someone watching this video and then going to their local Walmart and begin shoving blueberries into their ears. The image is literally in my head of some guy doing that with the blueberry juice, just spilling all over the ground in his clothes while people are shopping, just trying to ignore the guy. I don't know, dude. Maybe I'm crazy for finding that funny, but that's literally just me. But anyways, the children continued to speak to Sam for roughly half an hour, the subjects of their conversation not publicly known. But from there, the two kids said goodbye to Sam and rushed to find the first person to tell of their odd encounter. They found a man nearby and told him that they encountered a ghost. Of course, the man simply laughed and went on about his day, causing Faye to become nervous about sharing her encounter. Faye's father, publicly known as Mr. Y, noticed that his daughter was acting more reserved and slightly different, and after asking her a handful of times, Faye finally told Mr. Y the story of All Color Sam. At first, Mr. Y explained that he found the story to be completely unbelievable, but Faye's extremely detailed explanation of what happened caused him to start to believe in the story. And after discussing it with the boy, Mr. Y became convinced that the story did in fact take place. But whenever he or anyone went back, by then it was too late. There were no remnants of a metal house and even less evidence of an entity as strange and elusive as All Color Sam. And so, we've reached the point of the video where I discuss the possible theories of who All Color Sam was and provide my own explanation for why I think of the story and the entity that resides in it. The first theory that I will discuss is that Sam is a fairy slash ghost slash supernatural creature that appeared before the children. The main evidence for this is Sam's cryptic response to the children asking if he was a ghost, saying he was not one, but could be in a sort of way. And that's it for that theory, apparently. The next one is that Sam was an alien. The main evidence for this is that Sam's story first appeared in the Before a journal that discusses aliens, UFOs, and other subjects of that nature. Alongside this, people point out his odd attire is possibly a spacesuit, and the fact Sam makes note of having to clean the water as well as possibly examine the berries for a poisonous substance. The next one is that Faye and the other children had a shared hallucination, otherwise known as a folie à deux. The only issue with this theory is that the public, aside from this story, has no knowledge of anything relating to the two children and Mr. Y given their anonymous nature. Another theory is that Sam was simply a hoax or prank because the children were bored and wanted some attention, and the prank simply got out of control because Mr. Y believed his daughter's story. And finally, this theory states that Sam was a human. The reasoning behind this is due to Sam possibly trying to lure the children into a random shack in the swamp, giving him a nefarious atmosphere, or on the other hand, due to the children not feeling threatened, it is possible that Sam was what a child's mind created when trying to understand the unfamiliar behaviors of someone with mental illness or a drug problem. Basically, Sam was a real person but not in the context that we know him as, because instead of the children seeing him as a crackhead, he appeared as a random clown alien thing. Another piece of evidence that I found doing my own research was within a YouTube comment section where Cramblett stated that the phrase, "Hello, are you there?" was a common phrase used when answering the phone in the UK during that time. So when Sam says, "Hello, are you there?" it could be that the person is simply greeting the children in a strange way, or rather, Sam is trying to imitate common phrases used in society to try and blend in due to the fact he is an alien or supernatural entity. And so now, all of this has led me to the question of what I believe All Color Sam is. When I originally wrote this part of the script discussing my theory of who All Color Sam was, I explained that I was stuck in between the two sides of skepticism or belief. I explained that the evidence on both sides was convincing, but they also had counter-arguments and holes in their stories that I just could not ignore. However, it was while recording that I had a thought in my head. That thought being, what if All Color Sam was simply a clown that didn't have a job? This, of course, leads to me leaning towards the skeptical side, but it was after researching this idea that I felt more comfortable with the reality of standing with the skeptics, even if a part of me wants to believe this encounter was a real cryptid. But what evidence did I find to prove this theory of mine? And so we must go back in time to 1925, when Billy Smart Sr. and his brother set up their own fair. Billy Smart Sr. is a British showman, fairground proprietor, and circus proprietor, and the eventual founder and owner of Billy Smart's Circus. During this time in the 1920s, 30s, and most of the 40s, Billy Smart was working to make his circus as successful as it possibly could be. And by the late 1930s, this dream would become a reality. Billy Smart now owned one of Great Britain's most important traveling fun fairs, with about 10 rides and several other attractions to explore. Then, in 1946, he purchased a second-hand circus tent, all the necessary equipment to go with it, and the Billy Smart's New World Circus became the latest addition to Billy Smart's Fun Fair. And in just a few years, Billy Smart's New World Circus became the world's largest traveling circus under canvas in the 1960s, according to King Pole magazine. It was so popular that it was regularly shown on the BBC, typically after the Queen's Christmas broadcast. However, after Billy Smart's death in 1966, the circus would start to lose its traction. And with ever-growing financial burdens, the giant folded its tents in 1971, but still held a televised audience until 1983. Now, Panjam, why did you mention this random circus? I brought this all up to point out the ending section of the history of this circus, that being it folding its tents in 1971 and no longer going on tour. With something drastic like that happening, you can almost guarantee layoffs due to the fact they don't need all the people that work there, and since they were already struggling financially, they were eventually going to get rid of people. And out of all the people that would work at a circus in the 70s, the main people that I feel would get laid off were concession stand workers and, sadly, clowns. I believe that All Color Sam was a clown that was laid off by Billy Smart's New World Circus due to the fact they were losing a lot of money and had to resort to being a televised circus. But if Sam was a person, how was he able to do the berry trick in the metallic hut? And to that, I say that he probably just happened to learn the trick while working as a clown and spending time in the entertainment industry. Maybe one of his friends taught him, or I don't know, there's so many possibilities for how he could have learned that trick. And if you look at what he says to the children, it could all be associated with people like Sam, which are just other clowns he worked with that also got laid off, or just people who get laid off of their jobs that they love in general. For instance, when the children ask if he is a ghost, Sam says, well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way. When people like myself initially read that quote, we ask ourselves what he could possibly be rather than asking ourselves what he possibly means by that sentence. Even though he is not a literal ghost, Sam may feel like a ghost to his former life working as a clown. This could also be the reason why the children became calmed by his voice, because maybe after working as a clown and working with children all this time, he kind of developed a understanding of how to speak to children, just based on his knowledge, similar to how like preschool teachers and teachers in general just know how to talk to kids because that's what they work with. Even with other things such as the clothes in the hut, those have very simple explanations. The clothes are something that Sam wears to remind himself of working at the circus, and just so happen to be the only clothes he has, while the metal hut was simply something a construction company left behind, and the reason why it was missing was because said company went to retrieve it. And it was also right next to the Sandown Airport, which, even though it's not used as often, still probably has construction or some sort of work-based, some sort of construction-based work going on around it. And finally, the sirens that the children hear could be explained as sirens coming from the rarely used Sandown Airport near where they found Sam. That is why they sounded so distant, and since the airport was not commonly used, it would make sense for the air horns to not sound the way they're supposed to, and it may also take a while to shut off the air horns. And for those of you asking why it would happen a second time, as somebody who works in the electrical industry, sometimes you have to troubleshoot or test stuff to see if it actually works. And so the second siren, since it only lasted such a short amount of time, could possibly be those said construction workers troubleshooting the sirens to make sure they actually work the way they're supposed to. Of course, all this evidence is mostly superficial and only ties back because the circus does. But it was the best explanation for why I believe the Sandown Clown was, and that being that it was just simply a human who was a little down on his luck and wanted to not relive but just hold on to the memories of a life he enjoyed. And that's how I feel about it. Of course, as time goes on, my opinions may change, but this was a very complex story, but one I thoroughly enjoyed researching. It was a story that intrigued me in a way that some of my other videos had, and after reading the story and history behind it, it's still to me one of the eeriest stories I've ever read, but because of just how strange it was, for lack of a better term. Like, it's so weird as a 7 to 8 year old kid to be playing out in the woods or whatever, and you're crossing a little footbridge across a creek, and a 6 to 7 foot tall clown just appears and starts shoving berries in his ear and talking about how he doesn't want to hurt humans and he's scared of humans. So, and then on top of all that, he invites you over to his house. I mean, he's a little weird, but he kinda chill for real. But like with every other video, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Sam existed, or do you think he was a hoax? Do you think he was a tooth fairy, or a ghost, or an alien, or a robot? Or just not real? I don't know. What do you think? I like hearing other people's opinions on cryptids because I feel like it broadens my perspective of said cryptid. People may point out ideas or things I just simply didn't notice, but as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, night, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.